A man stabbed to death at Sheraton Centre. BNB staff take industrial action. And in sports, another major disqualification at the World Championships. Activity at the bustling Sheraton Centre came to a halt around lunchtime this afternoon after a man was apparently stabbed just outside one of the entrances to the popular mall. Police Public Relations Officer Inspector David Welch says the lifeless body of Michael Maloney, who is in his 40s, was discovered just after 1 by a security guard. As news of his death spread, scores of curious onlookers gathered trying to get a glimpse of his body. One of those on the scene was his cousin Andrew Maloney. He says Michael was a very quiet person and a hard-working landscaper who didn't deserve to die the way he did. Meantime, police have arrested and charged a St. James man with the murder of a Haynesville man. Renako husbands of Chapel Gap, Paynes Bay appeared in the Holtown court today, charged with the death of Terrence Phillips on August 12th. He has been remanded to Dodds until September 26. And police are also investigating the unnatural death of a St. James man. That is 56-year-old Anderson Shorey of Mills Apartment, Haynesville. Police say Shorey's body was found on the sidewalk around 12:30 today by a resident at Thorpe's Terrace in St. James. Barbados Attorney General Adriel Brathwaite has announced several government interventions which he believes will not only reduce this island's prison population but rehabilitate offenders. Addressing the local prison fellowship over the weekend, the Attorney General made it clear he was against the introduction of hanging as a reaction to a recent spate of criminal activity. Among government's immediate answers to tackle the problems will be the prevention of recidivism using social interventions at the family level.
We can start by targeting families, not individuals, by targeting families, assisting families, not only families of persons in prisons, but families, as we have said as a government that we will do.
The Attorney General also pointed to the use and abuse of drugs, which has landed many youths in prison. He promises government will soon be making an intervention in that area.
Most of our young men come into contact with the prison system, they're drug-related offenses. So we have to look and target those particular individuals to ascertain either A, why are they selling, or B, why are they using. And indeed, it's the area of the use and abuse of drugs that I am presently looking at, and I'm going to recommend to my cabinet that we indeed set up a separate court, a drug court, to deal with drug-related offenses, so that the young men who come to our criminal system, that we will offer them help as opposed to imprisonment.
The Barbados Agricultural Society feels that people who steal livestock and crops are getting off too easy and has called for a system to review their sentences. Chief Executive Officer James Paul made the complaint at a press conference today in reaction to the recent sentencing of a man in a District D court to probation for stealing 2 animals from Canefield Plantation in St. Thomas.
The theft of livestock and crops has increased over the years, and farmers have been complaining bitterly about their losses. But many are now disheartened by the fact that the perpetrators of these crimes, when caught, are being given an apparent slap on the wrist by the courts.
While I know that the courts are answerable to no one, as it appears, I really think that there needs to be a system where we actually review decisions made by the courts in this example to see whether or not, judges at least cannot be asked, what is the basis upon which these decisions are being made. Because in such a case where, again, we are trying to promote agriculture as the one that would actually help Barbados out during these very difficult economic times, it is really difficult to understand the approach being taken where individuals who go and deprive people of the property like this, and then they can get a suspended sentence.
Mr. Paul believes the situation will discourage existing farmers from staying in the business and prevent new ones from investing in the sector. He's urging government to address the issue with stiffer penalties for thieves in the new predial larceny legislation, which is expected to come on stream soon. According to Mr. Paul, while farmers have been trying to protect themselves by, in some cases, installing security cameras and other equipment, they are also limited by the law.
The whole issue about the admission of video evidence in courts. That is an issue that I think, again, I am hoping that when we have the new legislation, whenever it comes on board, that it would adequately deal with, because you can't have a situation where you have caught someone red-handed on camera in the act of taking away produce, and then the courts can say, well, that is not admissible. That, to my mind, is absolutely ridiculous.
And once again, Mr. Paul is appealing to retailers to buy produce only from registered farmers. He's also asked members of the public who have knowledge about acts of crop and livestock theft to report the incidents to the relevant authorities. Sean Farrell, CBC News.
Police in Barbados have apprehended a man who broke into the Bank Hall Shell service station last night. According to reports, an alarm was sounded and a response team from the Royal Barbados Police Force and Star Electronics arrived on the scene. The man was seen in the building, and as he attempted to flee the scene, shots were heard. This is the third time in the last month that the station was broken into after closing hours. A 20-year-old St. Philip man is this island's latest road fatality. Antonio da Costa Baird of Lot 17 2nd Avenue, Inchcape Terrace died after an accident at Woodbourne Main Road, St. Philip, around 3:45 this morning. Police say the vehicle he was driving struck a guard wall while he was on his way to Foursquare from St. Patrick's. Baird died on the scene. 3 passengers who were in the car also received injuries. Jamario Maynard, 16, complained of head and neck injuries. Natasha Hiplal, also 16 years, suffered head, neck and leg injuries, while 17-year-old Mario Lowe complained of pain to the right leg. Maynard and Hiplau were taken to the QEH by ambulance. Now, meantime, the Barbados Road Safety Association is gravely concerned about the increasing number of road fatalities so far for the year. Public Relations Officer with the association, Richard Cox, says even more troubling is that more teenagers are among those killed. He made some suggestions.
No driving with more than one person in the vehicle at any time. Number 2, no drinking and driving whilst in charge of the vehicle. Number 3, after midnight, an adult must be in the vehicle where there's more than one person. An adult must be in the vehicle as well. We are concerned that we have 17 deaths so far this year, which is 6 more because for this time last year we only had 11.
Mr. Cox says it might appear that they are targeting the youth, but this is not the case. What he finds is that younger drivers are sometimes overly ambitious when driving.
The idea is to control the activity of the young driver for, let's say, 3 years, so that he or she would be able to gain experience rather than passing the test today and going out with a carloads of boys tomorrow.
Scores of employees at the Barbados National Bank have taken industrial action. CBC understands the workers at all BNB branches throughout the island took the protest action around 10 o'clock this morning to highlight their dissatisfaction with wage negotiations now taking place. Or Peter Thorne has that story.
BNB employees say that an offer of just over 1% hike which has been put on the table by management of the bank is totally unacceptable. Requesting anonymity, employees told CBC that with recent hikes in the price of food and fuel, the offer amounts to nothing because it cannot cover the increase in the cost of living. They have also called for a 10% hike over 3 years, which they believe is in line with other agreements negotiated by its representative, the Barbados Workers' Union, with other banks in Barbados. Following the action, the bank issued a statement through its Assistant Manager Marketing and Corporate Communications, Solange Bruce. In the statement, BNB says it's continuing current negotiations with the BWU with a view to arriving at a new collective agreement, noting that it has had just 3 meetings with the union, the last of which was held last Friday. BNB says it's disappointed at the action taken by some of its staff in walking off the job this morning and views it as unnecessary and premature, since wage talks are still at an early stage. The BNB says customers would have experienced slower service in its branches today, and it has regretted the inconvenience. The bank also thanked staff who stayed on to provide service to customers, lauding their loyalty and responsibility. BNB says it will do its best to meet their banking needs with the minimum of disruption during this period. BNB has also thanked customers for their understanding and patience during the industrial action. The bargaining agent for the bank workers, the BWU, is yet to comment on the walkout. Peter Thorne, CBC News.
Well, there is an appeal to employers in Barbados to continue their no layoff policy during the current economic crisis. It's coming from General Secretary of the Barbados Workers Union, Sir Roy Trotman.
You recognize that there's a little light at the end of the tunnel and the light is getting brighter. Do not surrender your commitment at this point. Do not allow the fact that you are hurting to make you forget that the whole country is hurting too. And if you let go of the reins of the restraint that you have put on your stakeholders and your shareholders, and you allow yourself to let hundreds go collectively onto the breadline, that the social unrest and the upheaval which would follow would take away much more than the thousands of dollars which you may otherwise be sacrificing.
Ratified Democratic Labour Party candidate for St. Joseph, Dennis Holder, has a vision for the parish, which could very well see it becoming one of the leading places of interest on the island. Mr. Holder says his goal will be to empower more residents, and this can only come about through enhancing self-esteem and self-worth. Speaking over the weekend during a national cleanup exercise of the sargassum seaweed at Barclays, the DLP candidate said he will be proposing that greater educational opportunities be made accessible to the constituents.
As an educator, I'm looking at firstly a homework program for children, after-school homework program. That's one of the focuses I'm looking at. I'm also looking at education for the elderly, education for adults. I believe that the way out of poverty, the way out of any situation is through education. And because of this, I want to focus on educating the constituents of St. Joseph quite a bit during my term in office.
And Mr. Holder says the youth will play a more central part.
I've realized over the years that youth groups, for instance, have been on a low, and we have very few youth groups in this constituency. One of my focuses during this term in office would be to revive the youth groups as they were in St. Joseph. I also want to get all the youngsters involved in them. I'm looking at sporting, I'm looking at community projects, I'm looking at culture, all those aspects of the facet.
Scores of youths from the St. Michael's Central constituency have been celebrating their performance in the 11+ examination. Member of Parliament for the area, Steve Blackett, recently took out a group of them ahead of their entry into secondary school.
The hard work is far from over, as secondary school requires a whole new approach to education. But over the weekend, these youngsters put those thoughts aside for a day of fun. Parliamentary Representative Steve Blackett says the activities were mixed, with the students feted at Casa Grande and also taken on an educational tour of Harrison Cave.
This is the first time that we're actually celebrating with 11+ students. Normally in the past we would assist the parents with the necessary uniforms and some books, but we decided along with that venture to also to attach this particular segment of our celebrations with the youngsters. Really, this is just an extension of our building relationships, not only with the older people in the constituency, but also with children of school age.
Mr. Blackett says the effort is a continuation of the constituency's commitment to young people, which includes the Breakfast Club, where about 25 to 30 children are given nutritious meals before attending school. Sean Farrell, CBC News.
It was an occasion fit for royalty, and 9-year-old Rosonta Parsons was treated like a princess. This was the wish of the young girl who has suffered from sickle cell disease from a baby and has had both her legs and arms amputated. She spent last Saturday at the Hilton Hotel, where she lived the life of a princess for a day, spending several hours in a presidential suite with her family. The Hilton Hotel also hosted a ball for her, which she attended with friends and relatives. Former Kaiso King Adrian Clark was among those who sang a song to the little Princess Rosonta to ensure her dreams came true.